2007 Toronto International Film Festival. The 2007 Toronto International Film Festival was a 32nd annual film festival held in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. It ran from September 6, 2007 to September 15, 2007. The lineup consisted of 349 films from 55 countries, selected from 4,156 submissions. The selection included 275 mid to feature-length films, of which 234 were premieres, with 71 by first-time directors. The festival was attended by members of the industry, press and general public. It opened with the world premiere of Jeremy Podeswa's Fugitive Pieces, a film based on the international best-selling novel Lion Michaels, and closed with Paolo Barzman's emotional Arithmetic. Film reception. Critical favorites included No Country for Old Men, The Diving Bell and the Butterfly, and 4 Months, 3 Weeks and 2 Days, which were equally well received at the Cannes Film Festival, plus the Joy Division biopic Control, which, along with the eponymously titled documentary on the band, Joy Division, was picked up by the Weinstein Company. Peter Howell of the Toronto Star named Sidney Lumet's Before the Devil Knows You're Dead a major Oscar contender. The audience favorite, David Cronenberg's Eastern Promises, won the top prize at the festival. The New York Times pointed out that 2 previous winners had gone on to win Best Picture Oscars. Highly discussed but divisive films among the public and critics include comedies Juno and Margaret at the Wedding, the Bob Dylan biopic I'm Not There, and Brian De Palma's Iraq War documentary Redacted. Films expected to stir controversy for their transgressive sexual content, such as Ang Lee's Lost Caution, Alan Ball's Nothing is Private, and Martin Giro's Young People Fucking, did divide audiences but without fanfare. The Assassination of Jess James by the coward Robert Ford and Across the Universe both won their share of supporters, despite previous reports of shooting delays and director-studio clashes. Awards. Chris Chung-Chan Fui's Pool column won the award for Best Canadian Short Film. Stéphane Lafleur's Continental, a Film Without Guns, won the Citif Award for Best Canadian First Feature Film. Kai Madden's My Winnipeg won the Toronto City Award for Best Canadian Feature Film. Israel Cardenas and Laura Amelia Guzman's Kachachi won the Diesel Discovery Award, Worry Award. Anahe Bernery's Incarnation won the Artistic Innovation Award. Rodrigo Pla's La Zona won the prize of the International Critics Fipresci Prize, his high prize. David Cronenberg's Eastern Promises won the Cadillac People's Choice Award. Jason Reitman's Juno was first runner-up. Ellen Spiro and Phil Donahue's Body of War was second runner-up. In addition, film director and historian Peter Bogdanovich was awarded the International Federation of Film Archives Award for his contribution towards film preservation. The award was presented at a screening of Jean Renoir's Grand Illusion 1937, which Bogdanovich selected to illustrate the importance of film restoration. Programs. Canada First. The Canada First program features first or second-time Canadian film directors and established Canadian filmmakers who have not previously appeared in the festival. 8 films were selected to appear in the festival. Stéphane Lafleur's directorial debut Continental, a Film Without Guns, won the Citif Award for Best Canadian First Feature Film and a CD and $15 Zero Bursary. Amal, directed by Richie Mehta. Continental, a Film Without Guns. Continental, on Film Sans Fusel, directed by Stéphane Lafleur. Just Buried, directed by Chas Thorne. Mona's Daughters, Le Setter Pench, directed by Raphael Owlett. They Wait, directed by Ernie Barbarash. This Beautiful City, directed by Ed Gastinelli. Walk All Over Me, directed by Robert Cuffley. Young People Fucking, directed by Martin Giro. Canadian Open Vault. The Canadian Open Vault program features a recently restored and iconic Canadian film. Quebec-based filmmaker Francis Mankiewicz' Good Riddance was selected. The film has previously won 8 Genie Awards and appeared on every Canada's 10 Best Films survey. Good Riddance Les Bons de Barras 1980, directed by Francis Mankiewicz. Canadian Retrospective. The Canadian Retrospective program features a section of films representing an aspect of the history of Canadian cinema. It was the 7th year the festival has held the retrospective. Influential Quebecois filmmaker Mitchell Brault was spotlighted through 9 films he directed or shot. He has been credited for his visual style and creating some of the most important films to come from Quebec. In conjunction, the Toronto International Film Festival group published a book on Brault, Cinema's History, Mitchell Brault and Modern Quebec by André Loisel. Acadia. El Acadie, 1971, directed by Mitchell Brault and Pierre Perrault. Chronicle of a Summer Chronique d'un Eat, 1961, directed by Edgar Morin and Jean Rouch. Drifting Upstream, Entre la Mer et l'eau douce, 1967, directed by Mitchell Brault. Genevieve, 1964, directed by Mitchell Brault. Wrestling la Lutte, 1961, directed by Claude Fournier, Marcel Carrier, Claude Jutra, and Mitchell Brault. The Paper Wedding Les Noces de Papier, 1989, directed by Mitchell Brault. Orders Les Orders, 1974, directed by Mitchell Brault. The Moon Trap pour la Suite du Monde, 1963, directed by Pierre Perrault and Mitchell Brault. The Snowshoers Les Raconteurs, 1968, directed by Gilles Groux and Mitchell Brault. Contemporary World Cinema. The Contemporary World Cinema program features films from around the world. It included premieres and prize-winning films from other festivals. 62 films were selected, including 8 from Canada. All had Leonard Farlinger, American Venus Bruce Sweeney, and Along Come Tourists and Common Touristen Robert Thalheim. The 4 I Forget Avant que j'oublie Jacques Nolot. The Band's Visit Beker Hadis Morit Iran Collieren. The Banishment is Nini Andri Zivajan Sev. Barcelona, a map Barcelona on Mapa Ventura Ponds. Battle for Hennepin Nick Broomfield. Breakfast with Scott Laurie Lind. Brick Lane Sarah Gavron. California Dreamin' Endless California Dreamin' Nesfarsit Christian Nemisku. Chop Shop Ramin Barani. Summit Circle Countertout Esperance Bernard Imond. The Counterfeiters Die Falster Stefan Ruzoitsky. Two Ladies Dance La Vie Philip Falcon. Days and Clouds Giorni e Nouveau Silvio Soldini. The Edge of Heaven off der Anderen Sate Fatty Akin. Empties Viracni Love Jan Sverak. Intimate Enemies Alenemy in Time Florent Emilio Sirieri. Eric Nietzsche, The Early Years, Eric Nietzsche de Ungiar Jacob Fusen. Pharaoh, Goddess of the Waters Pharaoh, La Reine des O Salif Treor. Forever Never Anywhere Immer Nai Amir Antonin Esvaboda. Garage Lenny Abrahamson. A Gentle Breeze in the Village Tenin Koko Nabu Hiro Yamashita. Gone with the Woman Tat of Kavan and Petter Nice. Happiness Hing Bakar Jin Ho. The Home Song Stories Tony Ayers. In Memory of Myself in Memoria di me Saverio Costanzo. Iska's Journey Iska Utazasa Sisaba Balak. Jar City Myron Baltasar Cormaker. Jellyfish Meduzat Shira Jeffen, and Edgar Currit. Just Like Home H. Jem Vlone Sherfik. King of California, directed by Mike Cahill. Kings, directed by Tom Collins. Alora di Punta Vincenzo Marrero. The Morning Forest Magari no Mori Naomi Kewais. Manuringobo Lee Isaac Chung. Mutum Sandra Cobbett. My Brother is an Only Child, Mio Fratolo e Figlio Unico Daniel Lucetti. New York City Serenade Frank Whaley. Normal Carl Bessai. Our Private Lives Nas Vise Prives Denny's Coat. On the Wings of Dreams Swapnadane Gollum Rabini Paplab. Philippine Science Pise Aureus Solito. The Pope's Toilet El Bano del Papa Enrique Fernandez and Cesar Charlone. Run Fat Boy, Run David Schwimmer. Schwimmer. Secret Sunshine Muriang Li Chang Dong. The Secrets Avi Nesher. The Shock Doctrine Alfonso Cuaron. Jonas Q. Aaron and Naomi Klein. Slingshot Terrador Berlant Mendoza, son of Rambo Garth Jennings. Starting Out in the Evening Andrew Wagner. The Stone Angel Kari Skogland. A Stray Girlfriend Unanovia Erant Anna Katz. To Love Someone Denman Alskar Sangren. The Trap Klopp Esarden Golubovic. Under the Same Moon. Lamisma Luna Patricia Riggin. Unfinished Sky Peter Duncan. Unfinished Stories Reveillet Hay Na Tem Emporia Azerbaijani. The Last Mistress Unveil Matress Catherine Braylet. Weirdsville Alan Moyle. Wolfsburg Nanook Leopold. Dialogues Talking with Pictures 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 with pictures with pictures with pictures 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 with pictures pictures with pictures with pictures with pictures 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 the Dialogues, Talking with Pictures series features a selection of classic films which are chosen and introduced by well-known directors or artists who have found a given film influential or pivotal throughout the course of their own career. 8 films were selected between 9 filmmakers and artists. Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore 1974, directed by Martin Scorsese, introduced by actress Ellen Burstyn. The Best Years of Our Lives 1946, directed by William Wyler, introduced by director Sidney Lumet. Bucking Broadway 1917, directed by John Ford, introduced by director Peter Bogdanovich. Closely Watched Trains, Oster Slidivane Vlaki 1966, directed by Jerry Menzel, introduced by director Ken Loach. Leggetti 1962, directed by Chris Marker, introduced by architect Bruce Kuwabara. Oh, What a Lovely War 1969, directed by Richard Attenborough, introduced by Lord Richard Attenborough. Rodgers and Hammerstein's Flower Drum Song 1961, directed by Henry Koster, introduced by actress Nancy Kwan and director Arthur Dong. The Virgin Spring Jungfraukalend 1960, directed by Ingmar Bergman, introduced by actor Max von Sydow. Discovery. The Discovery program features the work of new film directors from around the world. 14 films were selected. Israel Cardenas and Laura Amelia Guzman's featured debut Kachachi won the Diesel Discovery Award and a CD in $10 Euro bursary. The International Federation of Film Critics returned to the festival for the 16th year and awarded Rodrigo Plaza La Zona the Fupresky Prize. The Babysitters, directed by David Ross. Blind, directed by Tamer van den Dok. Kachachi, directed by Israel Cardenas and Laura Amelia Guzman. Corroboree, directed by Ben Hackworth. Frozen, directed by Shivaji Chandra Pushan. I Am from Tatav Veals, Just Some Odd Tatav Veals, directed by Tiona Struger Maitska. King of the Hill, El Rey de la Montana, directed by Gonzalo Lopez Gallego. The Passage, directed by Mark Heller. Roaming, directed by Jerry Vejdelek. September, directed by Peter Carstairs. Those Three and Say, directed by Nakai Namati. With Your Permission, Till Doden O.S. Skiller, directed by Paprika Steen. The World Unseen, directed by Shamim Sarif. La Zona, directed by Rodrigo Pla. Doc Talks. The Doc Talk series features discussions with various documentary filmmakers on topics such as the future of the medium and their work and its subject matter. Clips from their new and upcoming documentaries are screened. The series was opened to the public for the first time. Topics included biography films, Mitchell Brault, War and Democracy. Biography, Complicated Lives with Scott Hicks Glass, a portrait of Philip in 12 parts, Peter Raymond, A Promise to the Dead, The Exile Journey of Ariel Dorfman and Peter Askin Trumbo. Canadian retrospective, Mitchell Brault with Denies Arcan Days of Darkness, Allage des Ténèbres, and Mitchell Brault Chronicle of a Summer, moderated by André Loisel. Cinema as History, Mitchell Brault, and Modern Quebec, covering war with Michael Tucker, The Bulletproof Salesman. Phil Donahue and Ellen Spiro, Body of War. Why Democracy? with Nick Fraser Storyville. Future projections, sections. The Future Projections program features non-theatrical installations in various mediums. This marked the program's inaugural run. 9 installations were curated by the Toronto International Film Festival Group and other Torontonian cultural institutions. Admission was free for all exhibitions, with the exception of the exhibit at the Power Plant Contemporary Art Gallery, which was free only to festival pass holders. Best Minds Part 1 created by Jeremy Shaw, curated by Wayne Berwalt. Darfur/Darfur created by various artists, curated by Leslie Thomas. Death in the Land of Encantos Cagadan and Subbanwanning Mga Encanto created by Lav Dias, curated by Cameron Bailey. Francisco Vazzali, A True Hollywood Story, created by Francisco Vazzali, curated by Gregory Burke. Into the Pixel created by various artists, organized by Nick Paggi. Late Fragment directed by Darrell Cloran, Anita Doron and Mateo Ghez produced by Anita Lee and Ana Serrano. The Soft Revolution directed by Brian Johnson and Anthony Roberts. Tyranny created by Ryan Sluggett, organized by Wayne Berwalt. Wildflowers of Manitoba created by Noam Gonick and Louis Jacob, curated by Wayne Berwalt. Gala Presentations spotlights prestige films of Canadian, American, and foreign language origins in equal measure. They are often world or North American premieres and are screened at the Roy Thomson Hall. 20 films were selected. David Cronenberg's Eastern Promises received the Cadillac People's Choice Award. Fugitive pieces directed by Jeremy Podeswa. Rendition directed by Gavin Hood. Michael Clayton directed by Tony Gilroy. Battle for Terra directed by Aristonis Tserbas. Eastern Promises directed by David Cronenberg. Second Wind Le Ducs Soufflé directed by Elaine Corneau. The Last Lear directed by Rituparno Ghosh. Elizabeth, The Golden Age directed by Shekhar Kapur. The Jane Austen Book Club directed by Robin Swicord. Sleuth directed by Kenneth Branagh. Across the Universe directed by Julie Taymor. Cassandra's Dream directed by Woody Allen. Cleaner directed by Rennie Harlin. Days of Darkness Allege des Ténèbres directed by Denise Arcand. Blood Brothers Tanku directed by Alexi Tan. Reservation Road directed by Terry George. The Walker directed by Paul Schrader. Closing the Ring directed by Richard Attenborough. Caramel directed by Nadine Labicki. Emotional Arithmetic directed by Paolo Barzman. Masters. The Masters program features films by world-renowned filmmakers. 20 films were selected. Alexandra directed by Alexander Sakharov. Romance of Astria and Saladin Les Amers d'Istrie at de Saladin directed by Eric Romer. Beyond the Years, Chun Nyan Hak directed by M. Quantique. Chaos Hea Fauda directed by Youssef Chahine and Youssef Kald. Christopher Columbus The Enigma Cristóvão Colombo o Enigma directed by Manuel de Oliveira. Disengagement directed by Amos Gittai. The Past El Pasado directed by Hector Bainco. Photos directed by Carlos Sara. A Girl Cut in Two La Fil Kupi in Dukes directed by Claude Chabrol. Four Women Nalu Penunga directed by Adore Gopalakrishnan. Glory to the Filmmaker. Kantaku Banzai directed by Takeshi Kitano. It's a Free World directed by Ken Loach. The Man from London, a London Furphy directed by Belatar. The Duchess of Langeais Ni Touche Pass, La Hague directed by Jacques Rivette. 100 Nails Sentacuti directed by Ermanno Olmi. The Princess of Nebraska directed by Wayne Wang. 1,000 Years of Good Prayers directed by Wayne Wang. Ulgen directed by Volker Schlondorf. Flight of the Red Balloon Le Voyage du Ballon Rouge directed by Huait Sayo Aitien. Favoyers Ami, Yasin or Amr Madhubala directed by Budaidev Daskuptit. Mavericks features discussions with film industry and other professionals. 4 events were held on a variety of socio-political topics. Former President of the United States Jimmy Carter and his wife Rosalind Carter discussed their activist work after his presidential term. Comedians Bill Maher and Larry Charles tackled religion. Mira Nair brought together 3 other Indian filmmakers who covered HIV/AIDS and screened 4 new short films on the subject. Finally, the conflict in Sudan was discussed by the chief prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, Luis Morno Ocampo, and a panel of filmmakers. Everything to Gain, a conversation with Jimmy and Rosalind Carter Jonathan Dem's Man from Plains, moderated by Alan Mira Nair presents 4 views on AIDS in India, with Mira Nair Migration, Santosh Sivan Prarampa Vishal Bhardwaj Blood Brothers and Farhan Akhtar Positive, moderated by Mira Nair and Ashok Alexander Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation's Indian HIV/AIDS Initiative. Religulous, a conversation with Bill Maher and Larry Charles with Bill Maher and Larry Charles Religulous. The Time Is Now, a conversation about Darfur with Luis Morno Ocampo, chief prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, Don Cheadle, actor, activist, Adam Sterling, co-founder, Sudan Divestment Task Force, Ted Braun, director, Darfur Now, Mark Jonathan Harris, producer, Darfur Now, and Kathy Schulman, producer, Darfur Midnight Madness, Dana Panjan, directed by Hitoshi Matsumoto. The Devil's Chair, directed by Adam Mason. Flashpoint Dao Huo Zion, directed by Wilson Yip. Frontiers, directed by Xavier Jens. George A. Romero's Diary of the Dead, directed by George A. Romero. Inside an El Interior, directed by Alexander Bustelo and Julian Morier. The Mother of Tears, directed by Dario Argento. Stuck, directed by Stuart Gordon. Sukiyaki Western, Django, directed by Takeshi Miike. Vexel, directed by Fumihiko Sari. Reel to Reel. Algeria, Unspoken Stories Algerie. Histoires et Pas d'Ailleurs, directed by Jean-Pierre Lido. Amazing Journey, The Story of the Who, directed by Paul Crowder and Murray Lerner. Terra's Advocate, El Avocat de la Terror, directed by Barbara Schroeder. Body of War, directed by Ellen Spiro and Phil Donahue. Kala's Saluta, directed by Philip Coley. Children of the Sun Yaldi Hashemish, directed by Rantal. Darfur Now, directed by Ted Braun. The Dictator Hunter, directed by Clark Quirians. Dinner with the President, A Nation's Journey, directed by Sabiha Sumer and Satchithanandam Sathananthan. Encounters at the End of the World, directed by Werner Herzog. Fengming, A Chinese Memoir, He Fengming, directed by Wang Bing. Glass, A Portrait of Philip in 12 Parts, directed by Scott Hicks. Heavy Metal in Baghdad, directed by Eddie Morty and Sarush Alvi. Hollywood Chinese, directed by Arthur Dong. Iron Ladies of Liberia, directed by Daniel Junge and Sayata Scott Johnson. A Jihad for Love, directed by Parvez Sharma. Joy Division, directed by Grant G. Lou Reed's Berlin, directed by Julian Schnabel. Man of Cinema, Pierre Ricciant, directed by Todd McCarthy. The Mosquito Problem and Other Stories, Problemat Escomarite, I Drugia Storia, directed by Andrei Payanov. My Enemy's Enemy, directed by Kevin MacDonald. My Kid Could Paint That, directed by Amir Bar-Lev. Obscene, directed by Neil Ortenberg and Daniel O'Connor. Operation Filmmaker directed by Nina Davenport. Please Vote for Me directed by Wei Jun Chen. A Promise to the Dead, The Exile Journey of Ariel Dorfman directed by Peter Raymond. Rebellion, The Litvinenko Case Bunt. Zilo Litvinenko directed by Andrei Nekrasov. Surfwise directed by Doug Prey. Trumbo directed by Peter Askin. Useless Wu Yang directed by Jaya Zheng. Very Young Girls directed by David Shiskal. The Wild Horse Redemption directed by John Zaritsky. Shortcuts Canada, Otomoto directed by Neil McInnes and Kathy McInnes. Blood Will Tell directed by Andrew McPhillips. More Attack directed by Jay White. Bumblebee directed by Jonathan Van Telekin. Virgin and Fade directed by Audrey Cummings. Can You Wave Bye-Bye directed by Sarah Galia Davis. The Canadian Shield directed by Simon Innes. Code 13 directed by Matthew Denny's. The Colony directed by Jeff Barnaby. Congratulations Daisy Graham directed by Cassandra Nicolaou. A Cure for Terminal Loneliness directed by Samir Reham. Cursing Hanley directed by Kelly Harms. Fadadum directed by Britt Randall. Diamonds in a Bucket directed by Sherry White. Dust Bowl Ha directed by Sebastian Pilot. Farmer's Requiem directed by Ramses Madden. Found Objects directed by David Birnbaum. Four Walls directed by Raha Shirazi. Frank is directed by Eduardo Mentz. Gene Boy Came Home directed by Alanis Abamsawin. God Provides directed by Brian M. Cassidy and Melanie Shatsky. Hastings Street directed by Larry Kent. Pursuit directed by A.J. Bond. Hymn to Pan directed by Francois Miron. I Have Seen the Future directed by Kim Christiansen. I've Never Had Sex directed by Robert Kennedy. Knights of Atomic Aaron directed by Adam Brody and Dave Derulani. The Last Moment directed by Decode Dawson. Latchke's Lament directed by Troy Nixes. Loudly, Death Unties directed by Sheila Pye and Nicholas Pye. Madam Tutley Putley directed by Chris Lavis and Masik S.C. Cherboski. No Bikini directed by Claudia Morgado Escanola. Paradise directed by Jess Rose Tweet. Reorder directed by Sean Garrity. The Schoolyard Les Grands directed by Chloe Lerish. Shooting Geronimo directed by Kent Munkman. A short film about falling directed by Peter Lynch and Max Dean. Smile directed by Julia Quinn. Teenage Girl directed by Greg Atkins. Terminus directed by Trevor Colwood. Terry Southern's Plums and Prunes directed by Dev Khanna. Three Beans for George directed by Sean Anisic. Tic-Tac-Toe directed by Matthew Swanson. The Whole Day Through directed by Adam Budd. Special presentations. 4 months, 3 weeks and 2 days for Leonie. 3 Saptamani C2. Exile directed by Christian Mungier. Angel directed by Francois Ozon. The Assassination of Jess James by the Coward Robert Ford directed by Andrew Dominic. Atonement directed by Joe Wright. Battle in Seattle directed by Stuart Townsend. Before the Devil Knows You're Dead directed by Sidney Lumet. Before the Rains directed by Santosh Sivan. Bill directed by Melissa Wallach and Bernie Goldman. The Brave One directed by Neil Jordan. Captain Mike Across America directed by Michael Moore. To Each His Own Cinema Chacon. Sun Cinema directed by Theo Angelopoulos, Olivier Assayas, Bill August, Jane Campion, Yosef Chahine, Chen Kaij, David Cronenberg, Jean-Pierre Darden, Luke Darden, Manuel de Oliveira, Raymond Depardon, Atom Egoyan, Amos Gitai, who Sio Hcn, Allergy. Chaotic Anna directed by Julio Medem. Death-Defying Acts directed by Julian Armstrong. The Girl in the Park directed by David Auburn. Grand Illusion, La Grande Illusion, 1937 directed by Jean Renoir, introduced by director Peter Bogdanovich. Here Is What is directed by Adam Volek, Daniel Lanois, and Adam Samuels. Honeydripper directed by John Sayles. I'm Not There directed by Todd Haynes. In Bloom directed by Vadim Perelman. In the Valley of Allah directed by Paul Haggis. Into the Wild directed by Sean Penn. Juno directed by Jason Reitman. Lars and the Real Girl directed by Craig Gillespie. Love Comes Lately directed by Jan Schutt. Lust, Caution Pinion. See Jai directed by Ang Lee. Mad Detective directed by Johnny Tu and Wyckoff Fi. Man from Plains directed by Jonathan Demme. Margit at the Wedding directed by Noah Baumbach. Married Life directed by Iris Sachs. Mongol directed by Sergei Bodrov. My Winnipeg directed by Guy Maddin. Night Watching directed by Peter Greenaway. No Country for Old Men directed by Joel Cohen and Ethan Cohen. Nothing is Private directed by Alan Ball. Persepolis directed by Vincent Paranaud and Marjane Satrapi. Poor Boys Game directed by Clement Virgo. Rails and Ties directed by Allison Eastwood. Reclaim Your Brain Free Rainer Dane Fernseherloved directed by Hans Weingartner. Redacted directed by Brian De Palma. Romulus, My Father directed by Richard Roxburgh. The Savages directed by Tamara Jenkins. The Diving Bell and the Butterfly, Le Scaphandre et Le Papillon directed by Julian Schnabel. Shadows directed by Milcho Manchevsky. Shake Hands with the Devil directed by Roger Spottiswoode. Silk directed by Francois Gerard. The Sun Also Rises, Tai Yang Jiao Chang Shenkai directed by Jiang Wen. The Take directed by Brad Furman. Then She Found Me directed by Helen Hunt. The Visitor directed by Tom McCarthy. When Did You Last See Your Father? Directed by Annan Tucker. Sprocket's Family Zone. The Besieged Fortress La Cité de la Siege, directed by Philip Calderon. Max & Co. directed by Frederick Guillaume and Samuel Guillaume. Mid-Road Gang Ma Mhc Krub directed by Pantham Thongsang and Samkiat Bithuranish. Nocturna directed by Victor Maldonado and Adrian Garcia. The Substitute Vicarin directed by Olborn Nettle. Vanguard. Boy directed by John Crowley. Les Chansons Demmer directed by Christophe Anwar. Chrysalis directed by Julian Leclerc. Control directed by Anton Corbean. Deficit directed by Gail Garcia Bernal. Ex-Drummer directed by Cone Mortier. The Exodus directed by Peng Ho Chiu. Help Me Eros Bang Bang Wo Ai Shen directed by Li Kangsheng. Mi Yo directed by Rafa Quartz. Mr. Lonely directed by Harmony Corrine. Water Lilies Nascence des Piavers directed by Celine Sayama. The Orphanage El Orfanato directed by Juan Antonio Bayona. Paranoid Park directed by Gus Van Sant. Ping Pong Playa directed by Jessica Yu. Sad Vacation directed by Shinji Aoyama. Smiley Face directed by Greg Araki. White Lies Black Sheep directed by James Spooner. XXY directed by Lucia Puenzo. Visions. Buddha Collapsed Out of Shame Buddha as Charm Foru Richt directed by Hannah Macmil Bath. Dans la Ville de Sylvie and La Ciudad de Silvia directed by Jose Luis Guerin. Death in the Land of Encantos Cagadan and Subbanwanding Mga Encanto directed by Lav Diaz. Dr. Plonk directed by Rolf de Heer. Eat, For This Is My Body directed by Michelange. Incarnation directed by Anahe Bernery. Happy New Life Bulldog A Gillette directed by Arpad Bogdan. Import-Export directed by Ulrich Sadel. Elamur Cash directed by Alessandro Capone. M directed by Lee Mying-C. Night directed by Lawrence Johnston. Pink Roz directed by Alexander Valgaris. Ploy directed by Pen Ek Ratanarawang. Silent Light Stellet Licht directed by Carlos Regadas. Silent Resident Waste Lillian directed by Christian Frosch. Beneath the Rooftops of Paris Sous les Toits de Paris directed by Heiner Salim. Time to Die Pora Umirak directed by Dorota Kedzirzowska. The Tracy Fragments directed by Bruce MacDonald. You, The Living Do Levin directed by Roy Anderson. Wavelengths. The Acrobat directed by Chris Kennedy. All That Rises directed by Daichi Sato. The Anthem directed by Apichat Pongweir's Ethical. At Sea directed by Peter Hutton. The Butterfly in Winter directed by Ute Orand and Maria Lang. Capitalism, Slavery directed by Ken Jacobs. Crossworlds directed by Cecile Fontaine. Discoveries on the Forest Floor 1-3 directed by Charlotte Price. A co-directed by Isabella Prusko-Oldenhoff. Ek 2D, Sun directed by John Price. Erzalem directed by Hans Schapach. Europa 2005, 27 October directed by Jean-Marie Straub and Daniel Hewlett. Everto Circumflixment. Page 298 directed by Bruce McClure. Wrong Moves Fox Movements directed by Pikchodorov. Gone directed by Caro Gold. Monica directed by Enrico Mandarola. Capelin directed by Olivier Fouchard. Cool Column directed by Chris Chong Chan Fui. Poor Vosbo Ukes directed by Henry Stork. Profit Motive and The Whispering Wind directed by John Genvito. Quartet directed by Nikki Hamlin. Scheidler's Houses Photography and Beyond Part 12 directed by Heinz Emichols. Tape Film directed by Chris Kennedy. What the Water Said, Nas, 4-6 directed by David Gatton.